So, I watched the FNAF movie, and now I want to talk about it. I'm not obsessed with Five Nights at Freddy's. I've never owned or completed any of the games except for Help Wanted, which I bought, but I'm too scared to play. But this series has played an instrumental role throughout my life and especially my childhood. Watching Let's Plays and theories gave me nightmares and infinite food for morbid childhood thoughts. So when I heard this movie was coming out, I needed to go see it. And to TLDR this entire video, I really enjoyed watching the movie. But I mean, as long as Freddy Fazbear appeared on the cinema screen, I would have gone crazy. So take this with not just a grain of salt, but an entire bucket of salt. Also, I'll try to avoid spoilers or give a warning, so you're safe. So, positives. I enjoyed this movie most of all just because it exists after 8 years in development hell. And again, the film actually released. On a visual level, it is amazing.
Wow.
From the pizzeria set to the Celebrate poster, which is a carbon copy of the poster from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and to the most importantly, the animatronics, the entire film looks incredible. I hadn't seen many of the trailers at all, so I was not expecting the movie to look this good. I also thought the acting was solid from the leads. Vanessa was a little bit weird, and the aunt was so comically evil that it was hard to take her seriously, but I thought the Hunger Games guy and his little sister did a solid enough job. And for the brief scenes he was in, Shaggy killed the role of William Afton. There were some solid scenes here and there, and yeah, those are all of the positives. For a movie I enjoyed this much, this is a really short list. Now, the negatives. First things first, this movie has so many plot holes and just accept it and move on moments. Spoilers until this timestamp. Why do the kids have the power to go into Mike's dreams? Just because his brother was kidnapped by the same dude? Abby draws pictures of the animatronic kids before she even meets the animatronics. Do they go to her house beforehand? How long have they been in contact with her? When Mike asks Abby, "Hey, do you know anything about Garrett's killer?" she says, "The animatronics mention a gold rabbit." But they think that Springtrap is a nice guy because of the drawings on the wall. So why do they mention him in that context at all? Also, why do drawings on the wall control the animatronics? Did William put those drawings up to trick the animatronics into doing his bidding? Did William Afton even know about any of this? There's just so many plot holes. And I'm sure there are answers to some of these questions. But if I'm having to ask these and I have a background with FNAF lore, how is Grandma gonna pick these questions up? Also, speaking of Five Nights at Freddy's lore, this movie fails on a lot of fronts adapting it. And let me just say, I do not mind if this movie doesn't adapt the lore exactly, because I don't think that FNAF lore is the, highest level of story that anything should strive to be. I think that it could definitely be streamlined and changed to make it make more sense. But the movie also doesn't work well as a standalone experience, which I think is a really big issue. That you still need context, and that it also is, not adapting the story that's already there. It doesn't seem to really be adapting the lore because Vanny shows up and Mike isn't related to William, from what I can tell. And probably a bunch of other things, but I'm not a Five Nights at Freddy's lore authority. So the movie isn't an adaptation of the lore, but it's also much worse without previous knowledge of what's happening in the series. I don't think that any of my friends picked up on the fact that there were 5 kids who were murdered, not 4, and that the Freddy that went to Abby's house wasn't just regular Freddy. Also, this movie brushes past the fact that 5 kids were murdered in Chuck E. Cheese's. That is terrifying, and this is a horror movie. If it focused on the horrific act that sets the entire series in motion, I feel like that would have been a lot better. If Mike somehow put the pieces together that these were kids, I feel like that would have been like a really scary puzzle to see fall into place for general audiences. And I think it would have been really cool. Speaking of terrifying, this movie isn't that. This movie did not scare me a single time as far as I can remember. And for an adaptation of a horror game and a horror film, that is a major problem. The Five Nights at Freddy's games were scary when tension was building and you were powerless to stop the animatronics, locking yourself in a small room with limited power, trying to make it through a night at Freddy's. What made it more scary was the small bits of lore that you collected throughout the game. Here, the main character doesn't even know the animatronics are alive, and then one gets mad at him for all of 2 seconds, and the next time he faces one of them, he easily beats it with a taser. I really wished that the climax of the film, instead of him just running and tasing all of them, was him locked in the security office, and then the power just cuts out, and Freddy's theme starts playing, and the main character narrowly makes it to 6 a.m. with his sister in tow. But instead, the animatronics aren't really scary at all in relation to our protagonist. They really just kind of leave him alone and are slow and kind of weak. I don't want this video to get too long. I think the point has already gone across. Five Nights at Freddy's is not a good movie. It's a horror movie that is riddled with plot holes, confused with its purpose. But despite all of that, I can feel the passion in its production. And on a technical level, it is killer. And it definitely reignited some part of my childhood. So in conclusion, even though it's not good, I really like this movie. And you should go out, watch it yourself, and make your own opinion. That's all for today. Bye.